Believe it or not, she actually showed me the financial statement at 12 years old, and I learned. I understood a balance sheet and a P&L. Math came easy for me.
Welcome to the Machine Shop Mastery Podcast, where we uncover the stories behind successful machine shops and their owners. By interviewing current and former shop owners, we dig deep to unveil their secrets of success and the struggles and challenges they've overcome on their paths to building thriving shops. We aim to elevate how important the machining industry is and inspire others by highlighting why owning a shop can be a great vehicle to creating jobs, stimulating the economy, and creating wealth. Here's our host, former machine shop owner himself, Paul Van Meter.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Machine Shop Mastery Podcast. Today, I had a very special conversation with Bill Cox from Cox Manufacturing in Austin, Texas. I was lucky enough to meet Bill and tour his shop with the NTMA earlier this year, and was just absolutely blown away with the company, with the culture, with the man himself, and just knew I had to get him on the show. So thank you so much, Bill, for being on the show. We talk about the origins of this business back in the 50s with his father, and a critical event that happened just a few years later, 12 years later and an incredibly hard decision that Bill was asked to make, but clearly made the right decision. And the result of that is this incredible company today with something around 200 employees, more than 100 machines, shipping 1.7 million parts per week. Just an incredible story of perseverance, of grit, of hard work, of just all the things that have to go into building a business of this size and success in the hardest industry in the world. So I won't give away any more little tidbits about it, but I know you're going to absolutely love this conversation. And let's get into it and go meet Bill. Good morning, Bill. Welcome to the Machine Shop Mastery Podcast. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. Good morning, Paul.
So you and I just barely got to know each other, but was it earlier this year, I think, the NTMA went to tour your shop, and I was just completely blown away, right? You have, 200 plus machines?
Not that many. The 200 employees, 100 primary machines.
Oh, spindles, though. Spindles. That's the thing, because you have many multi-spindle machines.
Yeah, that's true. It was probably well over 200 spindles. Yeah.
Yes. So anyway, an amazing company. I think your website says you ship something like 1.7 million components a week, which is a number that boggles the mind. Most shops wouldn't do that in a year, let alone a week. So let's... I'd love to start with maybe just a snapshot of what you guys look like today, what you specialize in, the industries you serve, and then let's go back and we'll talk about the history, the origin of the business.
Certainly, yeah. Well, today we're run a lot of Swiss equipment. Actually, most of our machines are built in Switzerland by Tornos. We have both 6-spindle Tornos as well as a lot of Swiss-type Tornos machines. And we also have some mill-turn machines, some Italian Eurotechs, and we have some bigger 6-spindle machines, Gildemeisters and ZPS machines. We run Sagami Swiss machines as well. And so we've been here in San Antonio, Texas from the beginning. We're be 70 years in business next year.
Wow. 70 years. Okay. That's a legacy.
Yeah. And it's a family business. And you've met, I think, a couple of my sons at the show.
ARMA. Yep.
Yeah. That
just this morning.
Yeah. And so we serve a variety of industries. We've been very intentional after having earlier in my career making a big mistake of being too heavily concentrated. But we do work in the firearms industry, oil, electronics, aerospace, defense, just a nice, healthy mix.
That's fantastic. Let's go ahead and talk about the origin 70 years ago.
Sure. So how it started with my dad. My dad was working at civil service, and he had a technical background, but he was a manager out in civil service and knew he wanted to do something on his own, and he was interested in manufacturing. And by coincidence, one Swiss machine went up for auction, and he really didn't know much about them. He just kind of researched it and figured he could start a business on the side and grow it. So he bid on it. He got it. He borrowed $3,000. He rented space in another machine shop to put the one machine in, and then he hired some friends to set it up for him, and just started it at nights and gradually grew it from there.
Wow. What a humble beginning. That's amazing.
And so the one neat thing, years later, I discovered a letter that he wrote in February of 1956. And in that letter, he said, I am expecting to be open for business on March 7th, 1956. And my mom was pregnant with me at the time.
Oh, wow.
And that turned out to be my birthday.
Oh, really? Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. And I discovered that years later after my dad had passed away, just stumbled on it. That was a neat little discovery.
Yeah. Well, what a special serendipitous little thing there. That's neat. So yeah, just the fact that he found it at an auction. Like, what if he had found a different kind of machine? Right? You never know what the history.
No, you never know. He did. He definitely wanted to do something different. He didn't want to be just another machine shop. And so Swiss machines certainly were not common at all in Texas.
No kidding.
And my dad at the time realized the electronics industry was emerging. And so he wrote letters and mailed them out to people in that industry. And within the first year, he got an interesting nibble, which really launched the business. He started making little stainless steel bobbins for a company that was manufacturing the bobbin cores used in computer memory.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And they were stainless steel, and they were well suited for Swiss machines. And back in the 50s, most shops really weren't that comfortable with stainless steel, and it had some very thin wall features. And so my dad kind of specialized in that and built the business around that. And he actually identified 5 customers in that sector, and it really launched the business.
Wow.
So we went from leasing having one machine in another machine shop to leasing a small space, and then building. My dad built a 6,700 square foot building, and put machines there, and into the 60s. And so there's another neat part of that story on those bobbins. So in the 1960s, the Vietnam War was going on. My dad had about a dozen employees, and 3 of the young men were getting drafted.
Oh my goodness.
And you can imagine, in a small machine shop, and you get 3 of your guys that you've poured into and trained up. So he got he worked on getting a deferment, which he was successful to do, but a letter that he got from one of our customers at the time was instrumental in getting that deferment. And I only found that letter 2 years ago, and it had ended up with my sister. And how I got it back is, so I have a couple older sisters who were never involved in the business. And her daughter had a bunch of stuff and said, I don't know why Mom has this stuff. It's all Cox Manufacturing stuff. I'll give it to you, Bill. Okay. And in that stuff was this one letter, and I want to read this particular piece here. Actually, okay. So this letter was written October 21st, 1965, by our customer Sprague Electronics, and he wrote, "As you know, you are our only source for stainless steel bobbins for our tape work magnetic cores. Unfortunately, we are not able to find another source for these bobbins that can be produced at an acceptable product. Your technique of making these bobbins just cannot be duplicated anywhere else in this country or outside the USA. We've tried for years to find another source without success. Should you in any way curtail shipments to our plant, we will have to curtail shipments of our bobbin cores. You may not be aware of this, but we are the sole source of supply of memory cores that will be used in the Apollo onboard guidance computer. Without these cores, the Apollo mission cannot be completed. Since we are sole sourced to him and you are sole sourced to us, you must maintain your deliveries to us or the Apollo mission will fail. Our cores using your bobbins are being used in a multitude of other military and space projects. They're being used or designed into the TXF aircraft electronics, a sensitive magnetometer of classified nature, 2 classified Atomic Energy Commission projects, IBM and Sperry Rand UNIVAC, and a host of others, which I am not allowed to name due to their classified nature of the project and government.
Wow. That is amazing.
As a kid growing up, I heard about my mom and dad would talk about, our parts are going to the moon and all this. And it kind of discussed, but I never saw the black and white and then saying that they tried to find another source and they couldn't replace this. That was pretty neat.
Absolutely.
But we just specialized in that, and that really put the business on the map.
Yeah. In manufacturing, growth isn't accidental, it's engineered. But a lot of suppliers are still building their pipeline on outdated lists, inconsistent follow-up, and hope-based marketing, hoping their website will somehow bring in leads. Gabe Draper, the founder of Factur, knows that struggle. Years ago, he ran a shop that went bankrupt, not because of quality, but because he didn't have a steady way to generate new opportunities. That experience is what led him to build Factur. Factur helps suppliers create consistent sales opportunities by combining targeted outreach with marketing that puts you in front of the right buyers. Their team finds the right companies, starts real conversations, and sets qualified meetings. So if your pipeline swings with referrals or seasonality, Factur brings a system that puts you back in control. And for listeners of this show, Factur is offering a free custom report that highlights the best opportunities in your industry, plus a list of real companies that match what you do. Request yours at facturmfg.com/chips. That's FACTURMFG.com/chips. Well, I mean, it speaks to so many things, right? Obviously the skill with which, your dad and his team, were able to execute these incredibly thin wall, complicated parts, the critical nature of all these end applications. And what would happen if those machinists went off to war and they had to stop making part? It almost gave me chills hearing you listen to that. I mean, talk about that, just because this idea, and I wear it on my shirt all the time, thank a machinist. And it's like the criticality of everything that gets machined in all different applications. So it's good, good for you, for your customer, for making that letter, and good for the military for considering it and letting your dad's employees stay making critical parts. Wow. Very cool. Thanks for sharing that. That was the first for this show. So after that point, already a dozen employees just a few years in, so pretty strong growth. What do you think contributed to just the continuous growth? And maybe share, was it continuous? Were there periods of challenge? You mentioned making some mistakes, getting too heavy. So maybe just share a little bit more of the growth story here.
Sure. Well, the next challenge that started happening, actually, my dad had already had one heart attack at this point in time. So he started having heart attacks in his 30s. And my mom was told that he probably didn't have more than 5 years to live. And he actually lived longer than that. But my mom ran the office at the house. There was all the invoicing and payroll was done at the office. I grew up around the office. I probably took my first order from a customer at 9 years old, answering the phone. We were, and back in the day, phones, long distance calls had a associated
Sure.
feed to them. And
Yes.
we only had one phone coming to the house, so we were trained to answer the phone, Cox Manufacturing. And so I was answering the phone at a young age, but my dad would bring the parts home that were made at the shop, and we would also package them. So my mom would package these little bobbins. Honestly, Paul, I learned to count by helping my mom package these bobbins. What we would do, they're pretty expensive little parts. And my mom would have me take a sheet she'd set me up with a white sheet of paper, and I would take a little pin and or straw, push the parts into stacks of 5 and then rows. And so it was real easy for a 5-year-old to accurately count parts, because you lay them all out in groups of 5, and then mom just glances quickly and validates everything's right.
Oh,
and so that was my experience growing up. But my dad, after he started having heart attacks, my mom fed him breakfast in bed every day, and my dad would talk to customers in bed and then get a slow start and then go into work. But my dad had kind of prepared my mom for the eventual outcome that, he was not going to be around. And my mom knew the office side, and there were a couple of guys in the shop that knew how to make the products we were making. And so he did have a fatal heart attack when I was 12 years old.
Yeah. Sorry, Bill. That's too early. It's too early.
Yeah.
It still affects you, obviously.
It was hard on my mom, really hard. But, we had loyal customers, and one of these customers, it knew we were supplying all their competitors too, and he was our first customer and our biggest customer. And he came down to the funeral, and after the funeral, he asked my mom, what's your plans with the business? We want to support you, but if you want to sell the business, we'd be very interested in buying it. And so my mom asked me that night, what do you think?
And how at 12 to ask that question of you?
But I always, I'm getting more emotional.
That's okay, Bill.
I always saw myself being a part of the business. Just growing up, talking to customers, and my dad would take me to the shop just to kind of hang out on a Saturday or something, or in the summer. And I said, "Oh no, don't sell it. I'm interested." And my sisters made it clear they were never interested. They had done too much slave labor in the shipping department and office, I think. But I always had a passion for it. I was always, math came really easy for me, and solving complex geometry problems and things it was just natural. So my mom actually started. She said that night, you're going to have to learn the shop side. I can teach you the business side, the office side, but you're going to have to learn about the equipment and the manufacturing side. So believe it or not, she actually showed me the financial statements at 12 years old, and I learned. I understood a balance sheet and a P&L. Math came easy for me.
Yeah. Wow. And you understood what those numbers actually meant, though? I guess it probably took some time, but... Well,
you know what? I did. My mom, because we'd look at she showed me several months, and I'd go, well, we made real good money this month, but then we lost money. What happened? And then my mom said, well, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I wonder, but we seem to go up and down and bounce out. And then she said, well, we don't do inventory every month. We only do it every year. And she said it's probably the failure to do inventory every month. So years later, especially when we were computerized, we definitely got to where we did inventory every month.
Yeah.
And we still have those months, though, every now and then, that just the stars misalign. But keeping track of your inventory to know your value of your work in process is key to really knowing where you are, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, in a company like this, especially ones where you're making very big quantities and probably to inventory and shipping as your customers need it, and those fluctuations in that WIP or inventory numbers can be massive.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, that's a good lesson for everyone out there. Do WIP and inventory, monthly or at a frequency that makes the numbers make sense. So at 12, did you finish school? Did you just start working more in the business, or share more about that?
I was always around the office, and actually at 12, my mom started bringing me along to meetings with attorneys, like the estate attorney, the accountant, the CPA, and my mom was never, the face of the company. So I think it was a comfort to her to have someone kind of come alongside her. Mm-hmm. And honestly, my mom and I just always had a great relationship. She also managed some rental property that my parents had bought, and I was the one. From the time I was little, I would go with my mom when she would meet a potential renter, and and that expanded to the meetings with this CPA, the insurance companies, and I even went with my mom to look at used machines a couple of times.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, but
wow,
I'm just a young teenager, right?
No kidding.
I started working in the shop when I was 14, and I think that was because I remember they said, well, you got to be 14 to work in the shop. And so I worked in the summers, and I ran a hand hardened. I did drill press work, running production mills, did a variety of things. And actually, I remember one job we had. We actually had an automotive job. We were making clock stems for the automobile clocks, the old days.
Yeah, sure. Of course. I remember those.
So we made millions of those things. And we had some machines that would make them in like 2.5 seconds. And we sold them to the company in Alabama that made the clock. And I would run 2 machines and the biggest thing was just stocking them up because there were no bar loaders that we had, and the part was, I don't know, maybe 1.5 inches long and 12-foot bar. You were constantly putting material in one another.
That thing quick.
That was a good little job for a 14-year-old. If the tooling needed attention, someone else would take care of it.
Sure.
They moved me around, and the one of the foremen that had worked for my dad from the time he was 18 really took me under his wing, and he taught me, and I'm great. We're great friends with the family to this day. In fact, his son-in-law works for us today. And he ended up starting the foreman ended up starting his own shop, and we would send him customers and work, and it's a good relationship. But I really credit him for trying to teach me everything he could. And he was not strong at the engineering side. So as time went on, and that came a little bit later. So my career path, though, was when I graduated from high school, we were landlocked in our building. And my mom and I had bought land to relocate the shop. And the building was a little over 6,000 square feet when my dad passed away. And my mom had added another 3,000 square feet and grown it to about 18 employees.
Okay.
By the time I was getting out of high school. And so we were landlocked there, and we'd bought land. And I said, well, I want to go to college a couple of years, but I don't have time to get a 4-year degree. And my sisters had gone to A&M. So I figured, well, I'll go to A&M and I'll cherry pick some classes, but major in industrial engineering. And I had never really formally learned how to run a lathe. My high school shop teacher had a metal lathe in the corner.
Okay.
And I asked him about it. He said, yeah, I really don't know anything about it, but here's the manual. And it was a wood shop, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't even have cutting tools. I borrowed cutting tools from our shop and read the manual. And I had a partner, and we kind of figured it out pretty crudely. So I was kind of self-taught. But when I went to A&M, the engineering program put every engineering student through a machine shop class where you learned all the theory on the hands-on manual lathe, and not as much the mill, but a little bit on the mill.
God bless them, man.
Yeah, right.
If they would only do that today.
Yeah, I don't know if they've done away with it.
Oh, they so have. There's very few schools that have hands-on application like that.
Yeah, in the class I took, and it was a standard class for freshmen, actually. And over the 2 semesters, we would make all the parts for a drill press. Now, at A&M, there was a foundry, and so that they would make some of those parts. And they had machines set up where you would just like fixture the part and bore one hole. And it was just to introduce the concepts. Sure. And there's a team of 2 teams of 2 people. You put all your parts together and you build the drill press. And I have that drill press today. Whoever would pay for all the materials could get the drill press. So I got it.
That is very cool.
Anyhow, I look back, it amazes me the clarity that I had that I was going to go 2 years and then come back and help my mom build the new building. And I'm sitting in that building right now. We built it in 1980.
Wow. And you guys now have like a whole campus. You have many buildings.
We do. Yeah.
Oh gosh, Bill, what a story. That's amazing. And to have I don't know, just the conviction, the passion, the at that age, and then to have to learn, like running those 2 machines, to learn just the value of time and keeping machines running, and just that work ethic. Oh gosh, I wish every kid could have maybe even a remotely similar experience and learn those values early. That would be good for our society. So you moved into the bigger building, and then there's obviously a few decades between now and then, or then and now, excuse me. Was the growth fairly linear after that, or just give us a little bit more?
Well, yeah, or no. Yeah, there's more, a lot to that story. So one of our customers back in the late 70s had become Zebco. They weren't a huge customer. Zebco fishing reels. They're making them in Oklahoma. And we were making a couple of parts. We had gotten into multi-spindle machines. I had bought the business's first multi-spindle when I was, how old was I? 21 years old. And went up to Rochester, New York. We bought a 5-spindle Davenport, a brand new one. And I went up there for a week of training with one of our foremen. And so we had gotten into the ability to make higher volume parts and get our costs down. That's what that was all about, right?
Yep.
And the Zebco was coming out with an open face fishing reel, and we made the prototypes for it. And this was going to require a larger machine. Okay. And so I always wanted to get into the larger machines, and I ordered a 6-spindle Wickman.
And how big a part could that make?
1 3/4. So it was purchased with the idea of making these open face fishing reels. Well, so we built a new building. That machine was delivered here. And not long after that, we learned that Zebco had made the decision to outsource not just that part, but the whole assembly of that fishing reel to Asia.
Oh, gosh.
And that was the beginning of my experience with losing stuff to Asia. And it's been a fight for decades, right?
No doubt.
So that was my first taste of it. Okay. Now, the good news was we had started making parts for an oil company that made geophones, which was used for oil exploration. And there was some big advances in that technology, and the price of oil was going crazy. And we had not been that involved in the oil sector before. Anyway, we jumped in. I found a part that machine could run, and that was a brand new machine. It could hold tolerances extraordinarily well. It's a European-built machine, and it really performed well. We really did well with that machine, and we ended up buying two more used ones, and just this customer's demand, we couldn't make enough parts fast enough for them.
Incredible.
And everything was fine until the day they gave us a phone call and they asked us to stop shipments immediately and stop all production, give us your work in process counts and raw material inventory. And they were half of our sales fall.
Oh my gosh, what happened?
It was an oil company, and the oil companies, they'll go through these cycles. And it was in 1982, and that was just the beginning of a really, really hard decade for us. We had never laid people off before. And I'm a young guy that, I had the business that one time I came involved in the business, and I applied a lot of engineering, and we did things like created our first brochure. We hired our first rep and built this new building that's twice as big as where we moved from. And all of a sudden things are, we're laying people off and things are going sideways. In that time period, that customer ended up going bankrupt.
Yeah, wow.
Our bank went out of business.
Your bank too.
Bank did,
oh
yeah.
Gosh.
They got acquired. They went. Another bank absorbed them. That they were in a bad place. We had material suppliers, tooling suppliers. In Texas, it was really, really bad in that era, and it went on for a number of years for us, and it actually took our balance sheet into negative. We had a negative net worth. I sold my personal home to pay off business debts.
Oh my gosh. Were you married at that time?
No, I wasn't. That's kind of another story. My whole life was kind of in a train wreck. I had a long-term girlfriend that honestly I wouldn't recommend it, but I was living with her, and I always thought we would get married. And at one point, she finished her master's degree and said she was moving on. And so my business was in a train wreck. My personal life was in a train wreck. I really hit bottom, and and that's really the thing that really brought me to my knees and brought me back to God. And at that point in my time, I really became a seeker. I met someone that invited me to a Bible study, and I turned my life over to Christ again, and refocused, and that's focused on loving God and loving people, and seeking God first, and things really at that point things started turning around for me. I really had hit bottom. And not long after that whole period, I started going to this Bible study, and just a peace came over me, and I just started focusing on God and on taking care of the people, and I had gotten kind of bitter going through that. So I had a heart transplant, and it was like a Grinch heart transplant. This is what happened to me, Paul. But things started falling in place, and one of the things I credit to God's provision. There was another shop that stopped making payments on a hardened CNC.
Okay. And
the hardened representative asked me, because I had been interested in these machines. We owned no CNCs at that time, and he offered that he could, if we would make payments on it, he could get it to me. And we submitted financial statements with a negative net worth, and I wrote a letter of how we would use the machine, and bless their heart, they let me take over payments on that machine less than a year old.
That's some trust. It's amazing.
So and that was a huge blessing. That opened, as you know, CNC was a game changer. Everything we had at that point in time were CAM machines, the CAM Swiss, CAM Brown Sharp type machines, the multi-spindles. So it just gave us the ability to do some work that we couldn't really efficiently handle before.
Hey, Paul, 2026. Guess what happens?
That means it's an even year, which means IMTS is happening.
I'm so excited. And I assume Pro Shop will be there exhibiting again, as always.
Yeah, it'll be our 5th time, I think.
Wow.
Would have been 6th if COVID hadn't happened. But yeah, even after being there that many years, there's a lot to understand about that show. It is a massive event, massive execution to exhibit.
Well, and a big investment, right? It's, gosh, your time, your money.
It is a big investment. Yeah, it's one of our biggest marketing investments for sure.
Well, I'm looking forward to in January, you and Nick and I are going to be at the IMTS Exhibitor Workshop, where exhibitors can come and learn like how to get their most out of IMTS.
Yeah, the workshop is fantastic. There's a bunch of different benefits from it. One, you can connect with all the vendors for your furniture, for your logistics, for getting all your stuff in and out of the show, electrical, everything. But this year, they're also doing an executive session or series. So really focused on getting the most out of the conference. How are you going to go in with a marketing plan, really execute it, and get your maximum ROI if you're exhibiting at the show?
Well, it's a major commitment to go to the show. I mean, I go as an attendee, but seeing all the work that goes into it, if I was exhibiting, I would definitely want to maximize my experience there and get the most out of it. And the workshop I know is going to be interactive, where they really work through things. Like you said, you can place the orders, all that type of stuff. And, that's going to bring a bunch of value to exhibitors.
Yeah, absolutely. The difference between coming with a plan and executing on that, it's a big difference as opposed to just showing up, throwing up your booth and hoping for the best. So yeah, it's definitely advisable. So exhibitors that want to make more of it, whether they're first time exhibitor or even if they've done it many times, but they really want to maximize their ROI this time, they should definitely show up at this thing. And what are the dates again?
Yeah, so it's January 27th through 29th at the McCormick Place. So you kind of get familiar with where your booth's going to be and all that type of stuff. To find out more, people should just go to amtonline.org/events and get signed up, and we'll see you there in January.
Sounds good, Mike. And at this time, you had did you still have your rep? You said you'd built a brochure and hired a rep, or did you have to lay that person off through the lean years?
Yeah, well, we had a 5%. It was a 5% rep, so it was not really technically a layoff, but we had moved away from them. We tried some different reps, and that's the reps topic is a whole another topic. We've had some great, and I think other visitors on your podcast have said the same thing. They're sometimes you can have a great run with them. We do have one rep that's been with us for a good while in the Northeast. Good reps are hard to find, but when you find a good one, it can be good for everybody. But we moved away and tried different things. Yeah,
sure. Did you eventually bring that sales in-house, just with in-house employees?
Yeah, our sales effort was more advertising, like in Thomas Register back in the day, and we were actually an early adopter of the internet. My wife and I did our first website was using America Online dial-up connection, and I built it. So we have a pretty good internet presence to this day.
Sure.
And I attribute that to being an early adopter. In many ways, our company is embraced technology, and outside of being maybe a little slow on the CNCs. And I wish, and I was looking at the CNCs for 10 years before I bought one. I wish I would have jumped in sooner, but
yeah. So after you got that hard hinge, did that just open doors to different types of parts that open to new customers, or just existing customers that gave you more of their work?
Yeah, I'd say all of the above. And we ended up having five of those machines, those hardened CHNC ones, before we moved to a different platform. And then we bought a Haas mill. And then it was primarily for second ops. At one point we had 5 Haas mills too, and now we don't really have any CNC mills, but we focus on dropping parts complete and making parts out of bar stock.
Yeah. Well, those newer types of CNC Swiss machines are so incredibly capable with axes all over the place and tools that can come from every conceivable angle. And that's neat. Over this period of time, you obviously needed to hire people. Can you just talk about that journey? What it was like in the early years? Was it pretty easy? You just put out an ad and you got lots of people, all the way to today where maybe it's not quite that way?
No, the skilled workforce has always been an issue for us. In fact, when I first joined the company full time, it was not long before we were getting people hired by the Air Force Base. Kind of ironically, the base that my dad was at and the two machinists that he ended up hiring full time, they had a bunch of people hitting retirement age, and our shop was a prime target. And once one of our guys went, and they, government holidays and wages, and it was a challenge. And frankly, one of my big objectives was to raise our productivity so we could raise our wages. And so the first years I was involved, I got very, very involved in retooling jobs. And we had a culture that my dad had started where one man would run one machine. And I honestly think it's because we were making very critical parts that we got paid very, very well for. But with the work we had grown into and the other opportunities, there's a lot of commercial work. That just for screw machines, you can watch multiple machines. And
sure,
I mean, the little part that I ran two machines, the clock part, that was one of the few jobs that we would run. One guy run two machines. But so I had to shift the culture and get people running more machines, and was able to also retool jobs, improve cycle times. There were a lot of the new parts that we had gotten had not had tooling designed specifically for those parts, and the shop guys that had run the shop for my mom it really weren't strong at designing the cams and getting the cycle times down. So there were jobs that maybe it was running 30 seconds, and I would retool it for 18, and 22 seconds, retool it for 7. And there was a lot of low-hanging fruit. So early on, my deal was we got to raise productivity and get the wages up. And we got to run more than one man, one machine, got to break that culture.
Did you have that mindset because of the early years of understanding the balance sheet and the profit and loss and the direct correlation between how fast parts came off and what that meant?
Okay, when I joined the company full time, I dove into a library of resources that had been published by the National Screw Machine Products Association. Today, they changed their name to PMPA, Precision Machine Products Association. So my dad had a library of resources, everything from job costing, accounting, and also very valuable. He had transcripts. The association would have national tech conferences, and to my knowledge, my dad never went to one, but they would print and publish and mail out the transcripts of those technical conferences. And I read through years of those, and in those conferences, and build screw machines, it was a trickier and more challenging to figure out how to get cycle time down and add drop parts complete. And so there's a lot of attachments and things. So I really learned a huge amount of the engineering things just reading through there. Maybe I'd get a quote on something and then I could refer back, well, how did they do that? And those conferences were all about cycle time. So that's everybody's, pushing to get that. The cycle time we didn't have multi-spindles. We had heard we were losing work to multi-spindle shops. And actually those bobbins, we had started getting undercut. By the time I had joined the business, we were losing work. Somebody had figured out how to make them and make them cheaper than us. And that's what we used our first Davenport for. was to make those parts, actually.
Wow.
And the volumes had gotten good. So I know you asked about the people side. So developing the people has been a big challenge all along. We did start an apprenticeship program in 2007, and we registered it with the Department of Labor, and we've have one person assigned as a training coordinator today. That's a full-time position. Mm-hmm. And we have a 3-year curriculum that's mapped out.
Did you build that all yourself?
Yeah.
Curriculum?
Okay. Yeah. Well, and I couldn't say all or so. We use Tooling U, the SME's product. We actually started using Tooling U before SME bought them.
Oh, really? Okay.
One of their older customers, and it's they continue to expand that, and it's a deep platform. There's specific things that we train the Cox way, that we have to train ourselves. Mm-hmm. But it's a big commitment to do that.
Sure. And so would you hire people that didn't have experience and train them yourself?
Yeah, in especially San Antonio, Texas, it's almost impossible to find someone that's really got the experience we need. We're especially with Swiss experience, but if someone has a CNC lathe experience, chances are they will have never worked with a sub-spindle or a dual or triple pass control. Mm-hmm. And all of our stuff's dual and triple pass, dual or if not triple pass.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, do you hire more for just their attitude, their character?
Yeah. The aptitude, and we do some interviews to show. We show them a part print, and we show a part, and we just ask them, okay, if you look at that print, can you see what features might be what on the part? And so that gives us some idea. We also use a personality profile tool called Culture Index. Have y'all talked about that on the podcast?
Not Culture Index. Tell us about that.
So there's Predictive Index, which is another one a lot of companies have used, and the PMPA originally introduced us to that. And it's a profiling tool that it just measures your natural drivers. And we buy a license, annual license, that allows us to give that assessment to anyone that applies with us. So we don't have to pay every time for a test. And the test will show what the person's nature is and where their sweet spot will be. Some people are more social, machinists are commonly very detailed oriented, and some people really like the routines, and some people not so much. And it helps us place people in the right roles.
Right. Yeah, that's good. That's good. And so you said Predictive Index was one, but the one that you use is called what?
Culture Index. So we use Predictive Index for years. There's another one that's in the same family, Acumax. From what I understand, the roots of all these are the same, and it came out of the Air Force. They realized the personality profile of a bomber pilot versus a fighter pilot was very different. And so this gave them a tool to differentiate. And as you can imagine, the fighter pilot, he's got to think instantly. He's got to react. He's got to be confident and just snap decisions and go. The bomber pilot needs to be exactly on time and in sync with everybody else.
Yeah.
And so
never thought about that, but that's a very different skill set and driver and kind of motivation.
Yeah, both could make good machinists. Maybe the fighter pilot more of a setup guy.
Sure.
or setting up new jobs, pioneering new jobs. Yeah.
Sure. That's fun to think about. Well, I want to switch, and I'm going to ask sort of a series of questions as a shout out to my buddy Barry, who was just saying, who listens to 2 hours of podcasts a day. He just consumes, content to always be learning. And he said he could listen all day to shops talk about what they measure, why they measure it, and how they measure it in terms of KPIs and productivity and, things out on the floor or in the business. So maybe can you just speak about the things that you measure to make sure you're having a strong, healthy business and how and why?
Yeah, well, certainly we keep an eye on daily shipments, backlog, weekly bookings, and the shop-wide. A number of years ago, we started tracking factory labor to value added.
Okay.
So the value added, I actually picked up from some of the PMPA's financial data, and they would show that on different companies. So it's a concept actually most CPAs are not familiar with, but it's what is your sales less your raw material less your plating, heat treating, outside services. So what's the value that you're really adding? So for us, we had software written for us years ago. That's a whole nother story in itself. But back in the 70s, our biggest customer had grown to be a mini computer company here in San Antonio. And we were making little parts for their disk drives and printers. This was before really the DOS machines were out. And we bought a used data point mini computer, and you couldn't really find software for a machine shop. So we hired someone to write the software. And we kind of had that culture. We moved off that platform into DOS and then into Windows. We have software written in Windows. That's C# now.
Right.
But anyhow, we as on the shop floor, as people claim parts, we have a budgeted standard value of what that part is worth.
Okay.
And so we every day our software calculates the value that each department did, and then we also look at the factory labor we spent, and so we know we're going to have a good month if that number is good, and we know we're not going to have a good month if that number is bad.
So let's say a part is worth $1 and you have 10 cents in material and 10 cents in plating. So you have 80 cents worth of value in labor.
Yes.
And then you compare that against the labor costs of the people that are actually clocked in time tracking against that. Yeah.
And then it gets a little more complicated because let's say there's 80 cents of total value added. It just hypothetically, we may say, okay, as soon as the part is made off the machine, we're going to say, recognize 60 cents worth of value.
Okay.
And then maybe when we move it to finished goods, we recognize another 5 cents.
Oh, wow.
Because it's past quality and everything's washed and cleaned.
Yep.
And then when we finally ship it, we recognize the last 15 cents.
Okay. And that's the numbers you use for your WIP calculations.
It is. Yeah.
Okay. Fascinating. And when you put it if you're building to stock, do you put it into inventory as the 80 cents or the full $1 that it's worth that you're going to sell it for? Or?
Well, if we're building it we have a lot of min-max inventory relationships. We wouldn't build something that we didn't have an order for.
Of course.
So as long as we have an order for it, we're going to put it in there. If actually the software is written, if we've got an order, say for 10,000 parts and the operator runs 15,000, it will not generate any VA after the overrun allowance.
Okay. Interesting. So, just accumulating more hours, but not more value.
Right. He'll keep adding dollars, but no value.
Right. So, well, that makes sense. So then you said you report this by department. So every machine, everyone that's tracked into jobs is, and are you directly pulling data off the machines as well, or as well as what the people say they're doing?
We do, but that's not part of this calculation. So we have all our machines networked now, and that's kind of a separate reporting piece, but it is all in the same database, and we pull different reports with a Power BI tool to go into the SQL database and pull things. But we've developed software to where even when we measure parts, we're on a vision system or even a profilometer, we capture that data, and that data is displayed back at the machine. And all the machines have andon lights on them. If there's an issue, the flag.
Yeah, for those, when we got to tour with the NTMA, we haven't discussed it, but you had a room with what, eight or so full-time software developers just building software. It's amazing. Yeah.
Well, and some are help desk too.
Sure.
Yeah.
But even to have that much sort of IT infrastructure. So with those numbers, with the aggregated data from different departments over the day, the week, the month, do you share that team-wide? And
yeah.
So how open book are you guys about just how the company does? And
we're open booked with financials to the first layer of management. We haven't educated the next layer on the ins and outs of the balance sheets and all that. We do show on monthly meetings, how we're tracking profitability wise.
Okay.
Each department though sees their own factor labor to value added number. And if, sometimes one department just has a challenge with what's going on, and they know they're in a red. And so, we try to help them to figure out how to get out of the doghouse.
Yeah. And is that a ratio, or is that
It is, yeah.
Okay. Huh. That's really interesting. And is it the burden that you're putting on those hours? Is it just like the fully burdened rate of the person, or a total overhead sort of person, machine, sort of gross margin kind of thing?
Yeah, no, it's the actual labor cost.
Okay.
There's a number. So there's no fuzzy numbers.
Got it.
That are thrown in on that. Now, the job cost, we allocate,
of course,
overhead. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, very good. And do you feel like that's a pretty good mechanism for keeping the shop sharp and continuous improvement and figuring out problems? And
it is. Yeah. It raises the awareness of exactly how you're doing and where you're doing well and where you're not.
Cool. Well, that was a good question. Thanks, Barry, for mentioning that. Thanks, Bill, for answering that. What would you say are maybe the most important strategic things you've done to make Cox so successful over the years?
Focusing on, love God, love people, really. I think the more we focused on that, and we've defined our new purpose statement: love God, love people, while advancing American manufacturing. That's really our focus.
And you got to imagine that just helps permeate into the entire culture and the types of people that you attract and how they apply themselves to the vision of that, to your business.
Yeah.
Do you have published core values?
We do. Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, my oldest son, William, and the management team put together a little booklet. We entered into the EOS process this last year. And I guess it was May when we launched it. And part of that process is to revisit your core values and document your purpose and all that. So we did just a fresh review of all that and published a little booklet. I can just flash it. This is
there. You go, Cox culture. I like it.
So it.
There you go. Oh, that's very nice. That's very nice. Well, that's a good answer. Some people say the types of machines they buy are being sales and marketing driven, but I think sort of centering on your values and how that applies to the people that you hire and how you care for them and how they're gonna care for the products they're making and therefore their customers. That's just a good foundational answer. So thank you for that. Something I often try to ask is, your best advice for newer shops, younger shops, to achieve success.
You know what? I would say don't be an island. Get involved with other peers, trade associations, the NTMA, PMPA. There are a wealth of resources. Locally, I'm involved with the Local Manufacturers Association as well. And I've been in other, I'm in Vistage right now and the CEO peer group. Also, I have team members in my oldest son's in Vistage, and I have some of the lieutenants in Vistage. I have someone in a C12, which is a Christian-based group. Quite a few of us were in C12 for a number of years, and we do different things to get different experiences. But it's about education, and so that would be the one thing, is to don't be an island.
That is sage advice. Yeah, there's far too many shops out there that are just on their own little island, their own little bubble. They don't connect with others. They kind of probably feel isolated and don't know who to talk to about the business problems they're having, and feel like they're probably unique when they're not. Every business, even successful ones like yours, go through trials and tribulations and can lean on peers. Just yesterday I did an interview with Bonnie and Ken Kuhn from Kuhn Tool, right? She's the chairwoman of the NTMA. And we just talked about the importance of peer groups and supporting each other and giving back, and just how supportive those organizations are. So that's great advice. Well, Bill, this has been an absolutely delightful hour. I really genuinely thank you for sharing, being so open and vulnerable about the earliest days of the business and all the success you've had so far, and the hard work you've evidently put in for decades. And your sons now continue to do that. So congratulations on your success, and thanks for sharing it with us.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
All right. If people want to reach out and learn more about Cox, where would you direct them?
CoxManufacturing.com. You can see our website. Actually, we have a lot of YouTube videos as well, shop tours and things, if you're curious what we look like on the inside.
Okay, CoxManufacturing.com. And they won't need dial-up these days. They can do it with high-speed, maybe even satellite internet. Technology's come a long way. Yep. Awesome, Bill. Well, thank you again so much, and appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Running a shop today is nothing like it used to be. Automation, robotics, and lights-out machining are changing the game. On Lights Out, we break down how manufacturers are scaling their shops with automation and technology to boost profits and efficiency. If you want to work smarter, not harder, and take your shop to the next level, you need to be listening to Lights Out. Subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts.